Thank you. Thank you, Paul. So I hope I can be seen by everyone.
Yep.
All right. Okay. Yes. Thank you, Paul, especially for your nice introduction and giving me this opportunity. And welcome you all to my session, Being Updated to Face Any Challenge. Let's see what's in it. I'm Sajani from Sri Lanka. Okay, yes, let's see what's impact in our session. So firstly, we'll be identifying situations where learners are not included in teaching learning process in normal classroom or specific context. And we'll discuss how learners are affected in this context and identify strategies to cater to them. And finally, analyze the classroom context to improve inclusion. Okay, here we go. Yes, can you use the chat and say, what is inclusive teaching? Please use chat. What is inclusive teaching as you understand? Yeah. Okay, giving all learners opportunities to learn. Yes, respect. These wonderful ideas are coming out. Okay, thank you all. Equal care rights. See, fine, interesting. Okay, that means you all have some idea on, yes, very good, thank you. All right, yes. So it's recognizing and minimizing barriers to students' learning and participation in their teaching learning process. So two things are there, recognizing and minimizing those barriers. Okay, let's go. Should we promote inclusion? Why? What sort of diversity do you find in your classroom, in your teaching learning context? Can you use the chat again? Linguistics and neurodiversity. Yeah. Good morning to everybody, or good evening, good afternoon. What other diversities do you find? Yes. Racial, yes, interesting. Classes, cars, languages, religious, wonderful. Everyone counts too, lovely. Yes, LGBTQ. Yes, there are wonderful ideas are coming now. Now tell me again, use the chat. How does that diversity affect your teaching and interaction in the class? How does that diversity affect your teaching and interaction in the class? Can you think how you respond to those diversities? One strategy, not work. For all, yes, fine. Planning lessons to suit the needs, planning to overcome, yes, trying to adapt materials, okay. Variety is helpful. All right, wonderful ideas are coming now. Choosing, creating, yes, lesson planning. Okay, wonderful. Thank you all. Yes, now we are going to identify the barriers of barriers to students learning and participating in the teaching learning process. Now you can see, these icons. Okay, so these are some reasons or context of learners being left out. So if they are visually impaired, or if their hearing is impaired, or if they have mobility issues. So maybe they may be left out of their learning. So what other reasons or context are there where the learners are left out? Can you text again? Differentiated, the lesson planning, okay, good. Let's go in with the other reasons or context. Yeah, the learners may be dropped or left or not attended. Access to pay facility, yes, linguistic differences, all right. Low ability, yes, ability level differentiations, okay, yes. Cultural backgrounds, yes. Lesson, yeah, challenge in level, the level of challenge of the lesson, yes. Active activities, learners more. Language barriers, yes, wonderful, thank you again. Okay, let's see. Yes, some other reasons. They are learning preferences. So your learning material or the activity you have selected may not be matching with their learning preference. Or so sometimes they may prefer kinesthetic activities, but they have to be seated and their needs are not catered. Their ability levels may be varying, as you have said, and emotional dimensions. So your language may be frightening, or sometimes they may feel frustrated. Sometimes they may be having some private issues, personal issues, family issues, and they may be intimidated by the classmates as well. And social dimensions. So we'll be talking much on social dimensions later. Disability. Before moving on, let's discuss what disability is. According to Americans with Disabilities Act, enacted in 1990 at their college level, disability is a significant impairment to a major life activity, which are functions that are important in most of the people's daily life, including seeing, reading, thinking, communicating, standing, bending, or maybe breathing and even sleeping. Okay, yes. So do you think that these will also make problems? These major life activities will make difficulties when they are attending to, when they are participating in your lesson as well. Yes, these things that we have to consider when we are planning our instructional strategies. Yes, then SEN. What is SEN? Yes. Yes, there are Sri Lankans as well. Very good, special educational needs. So some of the SEN that can be found in your classroom setting. It is quite interesting in the pre-webinar task that some had selected. There may be SEN, students with SEN, because you don't identify, you don't notice them. So there may be cases. So with learning disabilities, they can't cater, they can't manage with others. Or some may be frustrated. Attention deficit hyperactive disorder. That may be the case with some of the students. Because of that, they can't be seated or they can't tolerate others and they can't manage their activities for a lot, but that means more than 5 minutes or something like that. So that sometimes it may be annoying for you as well. And there may be sensory disabilities, as I have shown you earlier, and physical disabilities and mental health disorders and chronic health condition too. Okay, disability categories. Let's see what categories are there. Firstly, there are sensory. Under sensory, they are auditory. So they may be hearing impairments, low of hearing, hard of hearing, or sometimes maybe totally deaf. And then visual, they may be totally blind or some low vision, then some may be color blinded, you may not notice. So when you are selecting your images, so you have to be very careful, not only images, your documents. So you have to be very clear whether this would be, your learners would be able to see them. Then speech impairment. Sometimes some students may have difficulties in pronouncing, articulating some sounds. Sometimes there may be difficulties in talking as well. In cognition, so attention deficit disorders, dyslexic students who may find a difficulty in reading and paying attention, and learning disabilities, which are also going under cognition. Then physical, difficult to move, and then neurological, some may be epileptic, feeling migraines, or when they are having undergoing migraines, so it is difficult attending to the lesson, participating in the activities. And genetical, if the students are autic, so they may love working in isolation and not much interested in language learning, but only maths, something like that as well. And temporary conditions after surgeries or fractures, dislocations. So they may be sometimes after vaccinations, post-illness conditions, and these may be their contextual conditions. So if your surrounding is noisy, that will be a barrier. An uncomfortable setting, the lighting or the noise or the physical arrangement of the class. So these are the disabilities that we can categorize. Okay, yes. Can you text, what sort of disability affects you most when selecting your instructional strategies? What do you think most of when you are designing your instructional or when you are selecting your instructional strategies? Depending on my learners' needs. So out of these disabilities, there are several categories. Yes, contextual and cognition, yes. Yes, mostly we are catering to cognition and contextual, comprehending learning disabilities, yes. Physical, yeah, okay, lovely. Cognitive, sight, sensory, peer principles, multiple methods. Okay, lovely. Thank you all. Okay, so sometimes there may be some disabilities, some categories we may not take into our consideration. But if we want to make the class inclusive, we have to think about these as well. There may be some cases we don't know. Yes. Now let's move on to social dimensions of language learning. Okay, so there are three levels, three layers. Okay, the larger level and the micro level at the classroom and the intermediate level as well. So at the macro level, so there are belief systems where the students are coming from, their communities, their beliefs, and the values may be political, economic, and then religious values that also affect their learning, that affect or hinder their learning. Then at the meso level, so social institutions, family, and the society, the school, the workplace. So where the languages that they use. Then their social identities, power they enjoy, or the agency, the tone they enjoy. So if your classroom is multi-ethnic, so this you will have to think about, especially when you are considering their emotional dimensions, because the power enjoyed by the minority and the majority, that is different. So you have to think whether the minority will be intimidated in the interactions or not. And in the micro level, in the classroom activities. So how the meaning is conveyed using your resources, semiotic, that means your symbolic communication. So it's not only linguistic, even non-linguistic, pictorial, graphical, prosodic, that is the rhythm, and artifactual as from community to community, these may differ. So think about them as well when you are selecting material. Culturally responsive material will make more inclusive. And interaction, how you are making how you arrange the interaction. So pairs and small group, and there again the emotional dimensions you have to think about and give them enough practice of those multicultural contexts, regularly recurring contexts. So then they will find that there are some use that they can connect what they are learning to the real world as well. Okay, yes. What is needed to be done? Now I found when I am doing a literature review, so I found this interesting implicit associate test developed by University of Chicago, that is about, first thing, to make our learners inclusive, we have to drive away our prejudices. So to check which kind of prejudices we are having, because we don't know that we may say we are equal, we are treating equal to our students, but sometimes there are some hidden traits within us. So you may prefer white over the black, or maybe the Islamic over the Catholics. Likewise, so your preferences may be there. So your hidden preferences, you can identify with this. Okay, so if you go to this link, you can see that. And yes, so we'll be discussing how to cater the common classroom issues and online issues as well. So can you text? How can you help in the common classroom issues, especially with disabilities? Can you text? How to help in disability issues in the class? Some ideas? I welcome. Internal, yes, you're not aware, so you can get to know. So if you go through that, not all, they are still developing, but anyway, it's quite interesting. The question is, yes, how can you help the disability issues in the class? Supportive environment, yes. Use yellow paper for the, yes, that's quite interesting, yellow papers, yes. Because colors, they can particularly approach, given, create space to share disabilities, multimedia material. Okay, wonderful. Thank you all. Yes, quite interesting. Yes, don't just apply what fit you best as a student, because that's not the way your learners may be learning. So we may allow to apply our favorite teacher style, or the best activities we did as students, or the best method we have studied in. So that may, so if you want to make your learners inclusive, it's not the way. We have to tolerate everybody. Yes, text. What is UDI? Any guesses? Okay, yes, they can't. All right. Unique, universal design, then IPO. Yes, wonderful. Yes, bingo. Yes, universal design for, yes, instruction. So there are 9 principles. The first principle is equitable use. Can all hear, can all see, can all enter, have the access to the learning, teaching learning process, the where the teaching learning taking place. And the flexibility in use, whether they can take time, whether they can decide when they are taking up the lesson. And then 3, simple and intuitive, especially with students with learning disabilities. So your rubrics should be simple and graded. So otherwise there will be difficulties they may be facing when they are in their comprehension. Then principle 4, perceptible information. Your information should be, they should be able to understand without much effort. So easily understandable content. So for that, you can support them with multi-modes. And then, yes, tolerance for error, principle 5. So tolerance for error. So that is, you should, when they are making errors, you should be able to support them, and with some additional activities as well, and give enough time as well. So if they are in a vocabulary lesson, if they are struggling with vocabulary, they are given the exact synonym or antonym. So use circumlocution, that let them explain in some other words. That's all right. Tolerance. 6, low physical effort. So they should be able to perceive, understand without much effort. So especially if there are students who may be hard of hearing, or with low, yes, especially hard of hearing. So they may understand by reading the lips or the facial expressions. So arrangement of seating, facilitating reading the lips or facial expressions, or maybe lighting, not humming or not flickering. So otherwise they may have to have much, some other energy on paying their attention. And 7, Size and space for approach and use. You understand it very well. Yes, 8, community of learners, interaction. So here's where you have to think about the social and emotional dimensions, pair and small group work, because it is much more emphasized collaborative learning, not individual learning. Then your classroom, instructional climate, welcoming and inclusive. So to make them inclusive, we have to think about their preferences, learning preferences, needs, interests, and disabilities. Okay, now useful checklist to make an inclusive classroom. If you can go through this checklist, this is prepared by me, you can develop it further. So you can see whether they can hear well, can all physically enter and function freely, can all participate in the learning opportunities and activities as they are designed. So no need of adaptation on the spot. So are the rubrics or activities not complex, straightforward for all? Can all understand them easily? Is the format consistent? Because now students with their dyslexia or learning disorders, sorry, it will be difficult for them if the text is inconsistent, if the spacing is not of the same consistent spacing is not used. So to avoid that, you can use, we'll be discussing later, okay. Additional timings or resources or opportunities for practice arrange. Can all see the partners, group members, materials well? Is the space enough for all to move freely? And are all ready to accept their partners, to interact and learn collaboratively without any intimidation, without any anxieties, fears? All right. So lastly, are all included in the activity, reach through the material, address everybody, culturally responsive, you are flexible, then catering to the needs, preferences, and disabilities as discussed earlier. Some important tips. You have to be flexible and adaptable. 2 basic skills of a teacher if you are to create an inclusive classroom environment. Flexible, let them, if they say, if your learners complain, no, they are so tired and they can't do that now, so let them, give some time. And adaptable, adapt according to their needs. Then focus on designing instruction and assessment for a broad range of diverse learners. Not only this set, not only this disability, not only the preferences. So think about their social dimensions, emotional dimensions as well. Sorry. So there you can use multisensory instruction strategies and create and use accessible instructional materials, especially when you are designing digital tools, not only digital tools, and provide special educational services if they are available, or disability accommodations. Then universal design, follow universal design for learning and universal design for instruction, and heighten student interaction and small group work. And most importantly, you can understand with the responses of the students if your strategies you are using are working. So think about their attitude towards a variety of instructional strategies you are using. Okay, yes, now multiple engagement, interaction with instructional material. So you can use, so whether maybe a vocabulary or some teaching tenses or different things, multi-modes, listening. So you can, if it is vocabulary, you can write them and get them read. And you can, show them the image and you are pronouncing that. So multimodal. So, and get them repeat and respond verbally to what you are asking, or acting out, dramatizing, responding, and moving. So especially TPR is a better way to teach some tenses, or maybe the prepositions, or some adverbs or actions. So think about how to incorporate them in multimodal way. So this is coming under UDL. So I'll focus only on engagement under UDL. So Here are some I have picked. Create an accepting and supportive classroom climate. So all should feel that they are accepted, not dropped, not isolated, not intimidated. So all are supporting each other. Empathy. So, and you as in language teachers, you have to promote what is called global citizenship through your activities. Then create class routines, especially if you are doing online teaching, flip or blended teaching as well. If they know the routines, they are prepared. They know they will miss this if they don't follow the timings. And alerts and previews to help learners anticipate and prepare for changing of activities or schedules. So I'm sending emails this day on Mondays only, not on Tuesday. So that will reduce their burden, some extra burdens, and you can make them anticipated. So these will help you keep them motivated and make them motivated as well. And especially if there are students with ADHD, limit length of work sessions, don't go dragging. Involve all participants in whole class discussions to make them motivated and keep them motivated and inclusive. Okay, yes, can you identify what these icons refer to? This is how we are going to now recognize the barriers to students' learning. Now we are going to minimize. So these are some ways. Yes, sign language, wonderful. Braille, okay, yes, fantastic. Paralysis, yes, paralysis, okay. Audio, yes, audio, okay. Here in disability, wheelchair users, audio. Yes, wonderful. Okay, thank you. Yes, so you can use captioning and sign languages, Braille, and sorry, and sorry, if you are using digital tools, so they can use screen readers. So let them go to, so, and yes, we'll be discussing, and accessibility, universal accessibility for the learners with mobility issues. So these are some. Can you name any others? Any other ways to address the disabilities? Okay. All right. Wonderful. It's really nice to see you all are engaged. Okay, what is okay, yes, we'll see, we'll go. Okay, because I'm warned the people on Facebook cannot view the chat. All right, okay, that's all right. One pictures, yeah, games, dyslexia, all right. Pictures from for non-readers. Okay, yes. All right, yes. There are different ways we are going to address. Okay, now let's move on to online or hybrid teaching learning issues. There are okay, yes. Yes, now this is Stanford bandwidth immediacy matrix developed by Daniel Stanford during COVID pandemic. Okay, can you text what immediacy means? Yes, using photos that they are included, okay. Yes, what does immediacy mean? Instant in time, okay, important things, all right. Okay, quite interesting. Close activity, access something with immediate effect. Yes, wonderful. Yes, what you have said is correct. Yes, in real time meeting your learners. So in online education. All right. Yes. Now, in according to this matrix, there are 4 quadrants in 4 colors. What is the easiest way of reaching your learners? The coolest way? Which quadrant? Green or red or blue or yellow? Coolest way? Blue, okay. Yellow, green. Different ideas are coming. Yes, wonderful. All right. Yes, the coolest way is anyway the green. You are not meeting them in the real time. And because why? Because of the low bandwidth. You are affected. So emailing, so you can create discussion with your learners. You can send emails, some attachments, and discussion boards. So asynchronous learning. So forums and reading with text or message, WhatsApp groups. So you can create a WhatsApp or Telegram or whatever. So they maybe you can create some discussion with them if you can't reach them because of poor internet connectivity. All right, next step is, so they are poor, low bandwidth, but high immediacy. But you are at the same time, in real time, you are meeting the learners or you meeting each other, especially the learners. So there you can use this blue quadrant, collaborative documents, especially Google documents. So they may be, all can work at the same time, real time. And group chats and messaging. So for group chats, I found some interesting apps you can use. There through email, you can create this Slack there, so you can create if you use slack.com, so you can create a workspace there. The interesting thing is you need not to have the phone numbers, but you need their email addresses. So then there you can, just as WhatsApp, you can put whatever you need, and group chats. And thereafter we are going to high bandwidth. You have high access, but low immediacy, especially in your blended or flipped classrooms. You can give prior to meeting, you can have this record videos, but when you are recording videos, give some activity as well, some quiz or poll, some questions to answer. So there should be a purpose for them to do. And pre-record, not only video, even audio, and asynchronous discussions with audio. So then some asynchronous activities with video. So if you have some access to platforms like Canvas, OpenActo, something like that, so you can do such things. High bandwidth, but you are not meeting them in the real time. And if you have high speed connectivity and you need to meet them in real time, just like here, you can have video conferences. Or else, if your learners, they have the data problems, there you can go for audio conferences. Okay, we'll see how to do them. Sorry, it's not moving. Accessible documents. So first step is creating accessible documents, images or presentations. Digital accessibility. So you have to think about when you are creating your digital tools. So it is the easiness of navigation and understanding of a website or a mobile application or your electronic documents or digital tools. So by a wide range of users, including those who are suffering from visual, auditory, or motor, or cognitive disabilities. Okay, yes, there. How can you help here? How can you make your documents, digital documents, accessible? Any ideas? Okay, we'll move. So you can create accessible PDFs by Microsoft. If you go to settings on Windows, so you can turn on accessible PDFs and create and verify PDFs accessibility using Acrobat Pro add-on. And specifically use sufficient color contrast because that affect those who have low vision and color blindness as well. And then embed the links if you have any links. Then check your accessibility with the accessibility checker. And for the images, have alternative text. Give some description because there may be your learners have any screen reader. So they should be able to read what the image is. Then captioning. So to add captionings to videos, you can follow this link, and you may be using already. And for YouTube videos, if you have downloaded, you can go to this link. So this will be coming in the takeoff material. So for your data solutions, these things you can compress. Let them ask you. You can compress your material, and even the images, you can make them smaller, because otherwise you have to think about their data cost and their storage. So some may be that complaining their storage is full, they can't download. And don't assume that all your learners are equally digitally literate. So you'll have to tell them how to zip and unzip as well. So give the necessary apps. Then apps for pre-recording video. So when you're pre-recording, so this is a very good app I found, VoiceThread. So they are just like you are doing face-to-face teaching or training. So you can have your graphical remarks as well upon the presentation. And when you're, especially her thing, to limit the timing of the recording, 5 to 7 is the most preferable. If you are making them lengthier, so they won't download or they won't watch. GIFs. Is it necessary to add GIFs? Perhaps, because to make them, especially the students with ADHD or some others, to make them motivated, it's interesting way to add some GIFs. So you can create GIFs from videos or from a screencast as well. Now, our final step, practicing inclusion. This is a case study. Okay, follow this. Leslie is a teacher. She teaches a class of 30 students of mixed races. Her students love sports and outdoor activities. There are social stars as well as isolates in the class. Some students are aggressive and their parents are conscious and chauvinistic of their race. There is one student who always wants to sit close to the board. Most of the students take more than assumed time to write. Leslie plans to do a reading activity on sports. Students have to answer some questions on the given part of the text. Students are put in groups and she starts the activity. Okay, can you text any possibilities, any issues that Leslie should have considered before designing her activity? Yes. Okay, maybe needs to see here. Yeah, wonderful. It's aggressive students class appointment. For aggressive students, we'll discuss in question and answer. Thank you very much. Text groupings, movement breaks. Okay, yes. All right. Yeah. Okay. What do you think about the activity? Has she catered to the learning preferences? Grouping, yes, different learner types, different ability levels. No. Okay, what's their learning preference? What's the learning preference? Show some pictures. No pictures included, sorry, because I wanted to make many included in the session. Movement, yes. Kinesthetic activity. There should be a mixed approach. Okay, yes. Flexibility of outdoor activity, yes. So instead of making a jigsaw reading activity, you should have making a running dictation or maybe a, yes. Activities, kinesthetic, yes, wonderful. Thank you all. Okay, she should have, now her selection of the topic is correct because that is going with their interest. They are interested in sports. So what she has forgotten is their learning preference, kinesthetic. So they love sports and outdoor activities. It is not the sedentary positions they love. So instead of being seated, she could have got them run, some run into the board and some something like that, different kinds of sports to different groups. So they are parts of the reading text posted or pasted on the walls in a different area. So they will be going and picking and they'll be rearranging. And what to do with this? They are taking much time to write. So how to cater to that? Should give choices to be chosen by the students. Yes, of course. Text or reading lessons or different read short text about different sports. Yes, wonderful. Yes, yeah. Scavenger hunt. Yeah, wonderful. Games, line in role play. Yeah, wonderful. Interesting. Okay, yes, wonderful. Thank you. Thank you so much. All right. Yes. So think about such cases that you may come across when you're planning your learning outcomes and selecting your instructional strategies and materials. Let's see some of the possible issues. The material, is it culturally responsive? Because there are different races. So some may not like the material to read. So if it is about a sport that they don't prefer to be engaged in. So, and the activity type. So they like more kinesthetic activities, grouping. So there are social stars and isolates. So emotionally, how they are treated, are they well accepted? Their social dimensions, some are chauvinistic, so of their race. So you'll have to think about that as well when you are designing, when you are arranging the groups, and selective consider and be selective and consider anxieties, their fears, whether they are accepted or collaborated. So you have to put the isolates with the stars as well, let them collaborate with each other. And there was a student who loves to, who wants always to be seated closer to the teacher. So she may be hard of hearing or with low vision, how we are going to treat her. And they are taking further time, extended time in writing. Students with learning disabilities. So multiple choice activities, rearranging activities, matching activities, and graded scaffolded activities if they are to do some writing. Okay, yes. So with that, we have come into the end of the session. So we have identified situations where learners are not included in teaching learning process and discuss how learners are affected in these contexts, and identified some strategies to cater them, and finally analyzed the classroom context to improve inclusion with what they have learned. Okay, please text one thing you learned in the session and one thing you would like to try. Anything you learned or anything you would love to practice? Color contrast, okay, you dear principles when planning, okay. Spheres of stress, okay. Oh. Discussion goals, I will learn about UDI and using GIF. Okay, quite interesting. Okay, thank you all. I hope you would try one of the, at least one of the things out of the session, and something you must have. I hope you would have learned something, and it's my pleasure. If you learned, got something, these are my image credits and these are my references. And thank you. Okay, yes, over to you, Paul.
Hi, Sajani. Thank you for that. Very
Okay, my pleasure.
Sorry, my microphone down so you can hear me. Yeah, really interesting and lots of stuff in there to get through, I think. But thank you. So let's go straight to questions. And okay, so question. Hi, Peter. Question from Peter, who asks, what do you think is the most essential thing that teachers should do to improve accessibility?
Yes, most essential things means there are several essential things, but anyway, especially when you're making an inclusive classroom in an inclusive environment, we have to think about social and emotional dimensions along with their preferences interests and needs, disabilities. Okay, social and emotional dimensions, disabilities and preferences. That's I would love to say. Yes.
Okay. All right. Thanks, Sajani. Okay, question here from Helen. Hi, Helen. So questions from two of our presenters from later today. So Helen's question is, how long have you been focusing on inclusive teaching, and what quick wins or small steps with big impacts do you recommend for a teacher who's just starting to focus on being more inclusive in class? So it's a long...
Quick question. Yes, it's not that much ago that I started reading through that developing on this special topic. So everybody, so they have the access, so that you can go on improving, because inclusive matters because of poor professional development by the side of we as teachers or trainers. So we have to develop further. And some steps that we can take is for the teacher beginners, because here in this session, according to the pre-webinar task, I found there are pretty interesting people. So teachers less than 5 years and teachers more than 15 years. So all are there. So that's a mix of the same, that portion of teachers. So now for the beginners, I would like to say, start with focusing on your interactions, making peers and small group activities, thinking about their social and emotional dimensions, and focusing on their learning preferences.
Okay. Okay, thank you, Sajani. Okay, this is a question from Turumi, and Turumi says, for the benefit of everyone here, do you have any tips on handling symptoms of learning disabilities or disorders that haven't been diagnosed or recognized by the learner?
So that depends on the teacher. So we'll have to be very good observers. Now, just in the case of that we just discussed, so a learner is there who loves to be seated always closer to the teacher or closer to the board. So she or he may not know that she has low vision or hard of hearing. So we have to think about why this child has this preference there. So likewise, sometimes some students, they always love to be seated at some particular place, or they don't like moving with others. So think why this happens regularly. So if you notice something happens, some special features, some special cases, they are in a regular basis in your class, you have to notice. And you have to get them discuss, and you can make aware the parents and do some counseling. Or then you can forward them to some special treatments if that is necessary.
Okay, thank you. Thanks, Sajani. Okay, this is an interesting one. This is from Joe Palmer. And Joe asks, do you think courses should be designed to group people with similar abilities together?
Similar abilities, no. Because now if all of the lower level of abilities, so they will be discouraged sometimes, because collaborative learning should be there. So I should be able to learn something from Paul, and Paul should be sharing what my knowledge is. So there should be somebody who could help them. Yeah. And the other thing is that there are things that you don't know that you have this. So there are as well the multimodal. So some may be good in drawing, not writing or reading. So there are as well these things as well we have to think about. So I prefer not to have similar ability levels, ability groups. Sorry, I cannot hear you.
Sorry, I went on mute again because a lorry was driving past my house.
Okay.
Okay. So this is a question from Susan. And she asks, so she says, you talked about discussion boards for low bandwidth, low immediacy learners. Can you suggest any useful tools for these? Have you got any discussion board tools that you can suggest?
Discussion boards, yeah, discussion for low immediacy, you can use Google Docs. That's available for everybody, I think. So if you don't have the access to platforms, particular platforms like Canvas or any other thing, so, and even WhatsApp, why don't you try discussion board?
Okay.
Yeah, there you can put your images or videos or some documents as well. So have a discussion over that.
Okay. All right. Okay. Thank you. Okay. Interesting question here from Manisha. And Manisha asks, how can we make sure that our material is culturally inclusive? Got any tips on making materials culturally inclusive?
Yes. One thing, you can have a checklist. Think about beforehand, think about, you should have a preview of your learners. What my learners are. You have to understand your learners. Have the learners in your mind, and then you can make sure that you are addressing to. So now the thing is that in inclusion, so I told you in inclusive teaching, it is recognizing and minimizing. So you won't be able to, it is difficult totally avoiding the barriers. So you can minimize if you have those previews in your mind of your learners.
Okay. I guess, I mean, I'm sort of thinking as well with this in terms of, you know, where we design, or where teachers perhaps use material which is sort of quite generic, in that it's sort of maybe been produced in Europe, and so the focus is very much on the sort of a European context, and just sort of, I suppose, maybe how you adapt material to suit the sort of the culture or the geography or the whatever of students. Have you had kind of experience of that, where you've had to kind of adapt materials because it's not really culturally appropriate or culturally relevant?
Yeah, that's quite interesting question, Paul. Yes, yeah, we have such experiences, because sometimes some concepts that that is available in your societies are not accepted, especially as in Sri Lankan society, under the cultural values. So that is not accepted. So there we have to think about that seriously. If this is fitting enough to this age level, these kinds of learners, so we have to cut off things, or sometimes we are taking our own experiences, our own contexts, replacing what is there in the material. So that is one thing that you can. So you have to always address to what is their immediate context, immediate communities. So take in examples from their immediate communities will make them easy to understand what's in the context. And while doing so, we have to make them exposed to other cultures as well. That should be also there. But we have to think about whether it is culturally accepted with our values, because value systems differ from society to society, or country to country, from religion to religion. Okay.
Okay. Yeah, I suppose, I mean, that's kind of an interesting thing, and it's kind of something that I'm thinking about, where, you know, you might have a course book where it deals with family, for example, and obviously, and with most course books you would have this sort of traditional mother, father, children kind of family. But if you have I'm just sort of thinking about inclusion, and maybe this is going to kind of come up later, but where you might have you know, two parents who are women or non-binary, or two men, and how do you, if you know that you have that kind of sort of makeup in your class, or maybe children, or, you know, or something simple as, you know, they're adopted, or I don't know, there are so many different variations. Is it our kind of responsibility as teachers to kind of be aware of those contexts within the students that we have, and to adapt our material to the students? Or you mentioned kind of religion and culture and kind of what's acceptable. How far should we kind of be going to focus on the students in the classroom, and also have that awareness of perhaps the kind of the country's politics or things like that? I suppose I'm just sort of thinking,
that's quite interesting.
It's a difficult, sorry, it's a difficult one for the last question, Sajani.
Yes, language politics, yes, that affects as well. Yes, because language is something very sensitive, just as the case of religion, as well as what you have said is true. Yes, now it is not for us to always bar all what is practiced in the Western countries, or maybe in the Eastern countries, or maybe in a particular religion. We have to make that. But what we have to think is that we have to assess whether they are up to that level or the standard, or that they can bear up those different cultures. So that is our responsibility to create that empathy towards others. There may be cases like this. So there are families only with mother. Okay, so the mother may be having some other affair. So we have to, so if that is going outside the class, so that will create a big problem there for the teacher here in our country. But anyway, so we have to make them global citizenship. We have to treat others, respect others. So we have to let the learners understand they are also a child like you. Paul is a learner like me. So he has his own rights like me. He will enjoy the privileges or rights like me. So if you can create that understanding or the empathy among your learners, so it will be easy for you to make them exposed to such other foreign concepts.
Okay, brilliant. Thank you, Sajani. Sorry for throwing that one at you at the end. Well, I've just realised the time and the fact that we've run out of time. So I'm going to have to say that that's the end of this first session. Thanks again, Sajani. Really interesting, really enjoyable, and lots in there. And thank you everyone for joining us. And we're going to be starting again. Our second session is going to start in 14 minutes now. So that's with Bea and Rina. So if you go back to you're going to be kicked out of here in a second, and you'll be sent back to the lobby, which isn't a bad thing. And then as soon as the second session starts, you'll see there's a blue join button and you can join us for the second session. So thank you everyone for joining us for this session, and we hope to see you in about 14 minutes for the second session.
Thank you very much, and all who participated. Okay, that's a wonderful experience for me as well. Okay, bye.
Thanks, Sajani. Thanks, everyone. Bye-bye.
Okay, bye-bye.